I need not remind the minister of his colleague who willed parts of our treasured Achimota Forest and Ramsar site to his nephew forever. We can assure Minister Abu Jinapor, just as we defeated state capture and took back our snake hotels a few days ago, so shall we defeat state capture under his watch and repossess all our looted lands on the day of reckoning. For God and country, Ghana first. Aj.
Randy, that's quite a bit of information to digest on live TV. Repetitive in there is the word state capture. My question to Honorable Kujetu would be, what are his cutoff dates? When does this begin? When does that end? Let's suppose the acquisition of a land in Roman Bridge by the advisor to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, which he had done in 2005. I mean, I don't see how that becomes a problem under the government of Nana-Addo, Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and now that the Prof has been appointed or is working with Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. But you see, essentially, I have actually seen the statement issued by the minister yesterday, and I was very impressed with the chronology of events captured, supported by documentation. At this stage, I think that it's very crucial that for everything that you say, it's supported by documentation. And the minister is saying, for example, the issue of the Du Bois Memorial Center, it has not come to his table. Essentially, in the press release by the minister, he quotes two constitutional provisions. Article 2571 says that all public lands in Ghana shall be vested in the president on behalf of and in trust for the people of Ghana, period. So in decisions affecting public lands, I mean, if you look, the Constitution goes on to define what public lands, and in certain regions, it actually puts this beyond vested. And then further on, Article 2582, the minister responsible for lands and natural resources may, with the approval of the president, give general directions in writing to the Lands Commission on matters of policy in respect of the functions of the commission, and the commission shall comply with the directions. So these directions will have to come from the minister. Insofar as things could happen outside of him, but he has come up explicitly taking property about property. I'm thinking that rather than us move the goalpost, because there were specific lands or properties that the Minister for Lands addressed, and I'm hoping that we stay on those specific ones in the response that Honorable Kujetu is coming up with, so we are able to digest it. But
let's provide the responses for the specific
I'm hearing about
ones.
the Bulgarian, Nigerian.
I think it starts with what he believes is a selective response, because he has raised all these issues as part of his state capture. So the point he's making is that you first of all don't pick and choose what to respond to. But he has gone on to respond to those specific ones, and he has also attached documents.
Certainly. I mean it's documentation, because the minister in his press release quoted dates and summary of contents of some of these documents, which I'm sure are public documents. So anybody interested in the matter can verify them.
Yes.
And I think that it's a way to go. I think the minister's response to this is excellent. And I'm hoping that whatever Honorable Kujetu is thrown again into the public domain will be equally vetted and where the truth lies. But the assumption of the state capture, look, when you look at all the properties, I think 5 or so that the minister addressed, obviously, I mean, it is not the first time government is allocating land to a private person, a place like Wa, for the use or for commercial use. And in any case, it's a lease for 50 years. It is not outright sale. So what is there, as if it just has never happened? But there are examples, like the minister stated.
Maybe you didn't hear what Honorable Ablakwa said.
Yes, because I think it's a lot
what
of
he said here, he put
Yeah.
out documentation, because he said many of the things here.
Yeah.
To the extent that the regional minister, I always confuse Upper East and Upper West. The Y and Bulgar thing.
Why is Upper West?
That,
So let me help you. Upper West, Wa.
Wa. That's how I get it. West Wa. That's how I get it.
That's how
I always confuse them.
In
So the West Wa. Okay. WW. Okay. So the point that Honorable Okujeto made, he was lamenting how helpless ministers of state had become in view of this thing. That the regional minister went out to stop this private developer, and the WA one went out to stop the private developer from developing parks of gardens land into a filling station. And the acting head of the lands commission in the region wrote to the minister to tell the minister to back off. And that the land...
That is captured in the constitution.
No, you don't get what I'm saying. I'm saying that. Yes, okay. I'm saying that. That the land had been properly allocated to the private developer.
Yeah.
And so the regional minister, who thought he was protecting state land belonging to the parks and gardens, had become helpless.
Yeah.
So he raised that issue. Then on the issue of the parks and gardens at...
But you see, my point is that given the constitutional provisions, Article 2571, 2582, I think that the minister is justified in allocating that land. The regional minister, I think, I am not faulty, I'm not too sure the checks the regional minister undertook before stopping the private developer. Because if I were a regional minister and something of the sort comes to my table, I'm sure I would undertake some due diligence before going there to physically stop some activity happening on public lands. Right, that's what I would do. I'm not too sure what happened, but the Constitution actually grants the minister the right through the presidency to allocate that land. And if it's a transparent process, there's nothing untoward about that. If it's a transparent process, there's nothing untoward about that. That's my point. And the press release by the minister, for me, when I saw it, I have not cared, irrespective of what Honorable Okujeto is saying this morning, I was impressed because I think that it captured the chronology from when some of these lands were acquired, 18-something, to what has happened over time to date. And I think that this is how we should be going. And I think that the minister has done a yeoman's job going forward. I think that it's going to be your document after my document. But this whole element of state capture is what I find the issue.
Look, Randy, when I was reading through his statement, do you know what caught my attention first and foremost, which I took note of? And it caught my attention because pending in Parliament today is a question that I have asked the minister relating to the sale of the timber market land in Tamale. It's a pending question that I have asked him. And you know, before the minister comes to answer the question, if it's not an urgent question, the answer is published. Yeah. So the question was published last week, but he wasn't available to answer the question. But the answer was already published. Randy, and my question was to find out how much revenue government made from that particular sale. Now, very typical of the minister, like in the response that he gave to Ablakwa, that my claim that the land in question had been sold is palpably false. Then he goes on in his answer to admit that it has been leased for 621 Ghana cedis per year. So his response initially was that my claim that it's been sold is a lie, but that it is leased. But Randy, when I was reading his response to Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, he used lease and sold interchangeably. But in Parliament, he's telling us that sale is not the same as lease. But in the media, when he's responding to Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, he uses lease and sold interchangeably. To understand that the concept of land sale, legislative and economic concept of land sale in Ghana, is a lease. Yeah, that's the concept of land sale in Ghana by our laws. But in Parliament, like I'm saying, he tries to say that my claim is false. In fact, that's how he opens. It's false. We haven't sold the land. Then he goes on to say that it's a lease. But I'm saying that but I'm saying Randy, but I'm saying that's the dishonesty. But Randy, in the press, when he's responding to Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, he says, for example, for the avoidance of doubt, the lease or sale of the land at Cantonment allocated to the Department of Parks and Gardens, the subject matter, blah, blah, blah. So he says the lease or sale of the land. So he uses it interchangeably.
Because
so you see, when you are minded, please, I didn't interrupt you. I deliberately allowed you to have all the time.
Right, okay.
So please allow me to also proceed without that interruption. Let's just respect those rules of engagement. You talk about the Parks and Garden land. See the obvious contradictions. You have one minister of the same government come to Parliament with one narrative. Then you have the minister also espousing a different narrative in his statement. Clear contradictions. The Minister of Local Government comes to Parliament and says that the land is still in possession of the ministry and that the private developer is unable to produce any authentic lease to the land and has actually begun taking steps to retrieve the land and to ward away the private developer. Are you getting the point? That, in my view, is a responsible public servant acting in the interest of the state. But then you have the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, perhaps depending once again, on information he is fed by technical advisors that is seeking to protect the interest of a so-called private developer. And yet you have the minister, not addressing his mind to that obvious contradiction coming from two ministers of state in the same government over the same parcel of land. That should be worrying. Again, you are speaking to a matter that was a PPP arrangement. The PPP arrangement, according to your own narrative, if we want to believe your narrative, started under the previous government. Government is continuum. It came to your tenure. Have you reported to us if the partner involved in this PP arrangement, has actually lived up to the expectation of the government of the day? Because you are telling us that the private developer was to take this land and was to provide certain logistics to the Parks and Garden, funding to the Parks and Garden. That's what you are telling us. Has that been done?
So the Honorable Elvis Efri Ankra,
yes,
who was Deputy Minister
at the time. In fact, he cites his letters.
He has sent me documents. So there is a 6th February 2012 letter, which is signed by Nantongma Adam Wumbe, Chief Parks and Gardens Officer, resourcing of the Department of Parks and Gardens. And it says, having exhausted to raise the needed funding to support the department, and with due consideration to the many competing commitments on government, and with due regard to the discussions we've been having over the past year on resourcing the department, we wish to suggest that a part of our land at Cantonment is leased out for the purposes of using the proceeds thereof to resource the department of the required logistics. Indeed, we continue to receive proposals on this property, which have continuously forwarded to the ministry. Then he goes to say the lack of logistics as staff bus tractors continue to stifle our work. Says key among our needs is an office infrastructure as the building.
So Randy,
that's consistent with what
that's what I said. I get that.
So he has this letter dated 6th February, and then a reminder signed by the same acting Chief Parks and Gardens Officer on the 13th of July.
Right.
Then interestingly, on the 20th of February 2017, there is this letter from Akumbani and Associates to the Honorable Minister of Local Government, the Honorable Haji Ali Mamahama. And it says, agreement between Akumbani and Associates and Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development on behalf of Parks and Gardens. It says, we make reference to your letter to the Lands Commission dated the 23rd of September 2016. Reference, the number is here. On the above subject, we wish to inform you that the Lands Commission has subsequently reissued us with the lease documents. In fulfillment of our agreement, therefore, we wish to inform you that all the immovable items that we need to support Parks and Gardens with have been procured and are ready for delivery. We hereby wish to be given a convenient date to present the items while we wait for the permit to be secured so we can commence construction of the new offices as per the agreement. Kindly find attached a copy of the items to be delivered. Thank you very much in anticipation of the usual cooperation, and it's signed by Isabella as Samwenin General Manager on behalf of the company.
So Randy, that's the point I am making.
Right.
Now, those contradictions, first of all, have to be addressed. How come the Minister for Local Government currently in this government has a different narrative from the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources? That's one. Secondly, if you claim that the agreement predates this administration, what have you been doing since you took over? And remember I said earlier that the wrongs of the past should not be used to justify the wrongs of today. So if you agree with Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa and many Ghanaians that some of these lands must not fall into the hands of private developers, what have you been doing? Now, the arrangement that you point to was to ensure that some office buildings were constructed for the Parks and Garden, you know, in lieu of this portion of land. Has that been done? Has the private developer met that obligation that was imposed? You haven't reported to that. You haven't reported, you know, to us on that. Again, it is instructive that Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa in his responses has reminded us all about some 5-story complex building that was supposed to be put up in 2021 under this administration. If they did not have possession of the land in 2021, how come they were contemplating putting up a 5-story, you know, building to accommodate, you know, the officers of Parks and Garden at the time? I mean, these are all questions that are begging, you know, for answers. Then you look at the judicial service land. Clearly, again, more questions than answers. You claim in your attempt to equalize that the leases were given in 2016 and reversed in 2017 by the Lands Commission. So the commission sat in 2017 and reversed all the 24 leases. Is that it? 24 leases. And yet, a couple of years down the line, you restore 8. On what basis did you restore the 8?
I think
on what basis did you restore the 8? Let us know what was different between the 8 and then the 20, the rest of the 23 that you did not reverse. So these are all questions that need more answers. And in the case of the Du Bois Center, again, he says that, look, the lands, remember in his opening, he said the lands are vested in the president.
That's right.
They are vested in the president, which is true. It is constitutional. Then he says that there is no pending lease. I mean, a request. There's no pending request at the Lands Commission. But, Randy, check the way, the last paragraph of that statement. He says there is no pending lease for any, a request for any lease at the Lands Commission. But then the last paragraph, he says, from the foregoing, it is clear that the lands, the subject matter of the Member of Parliament's allegation, were not sold and or leased under the current administration, and the allegations of state capture are therefore false.
Yeah, because any sales or lease will have to come to the minister's desk.
Exactly. So you see, the minister has to be. The minister has to be categorical. It has to be categorical.
I think it was
first of all, in the opening, he says that it is not been sold.
In fact,
just what do you mean by it is not sold?
Just